I apologize for the short update. Things have gotten a little crazy around here. And I'm not sure how often I'll be able to update going forward. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given me. And while I only have a couple of stories to share with you, I'll be interested to see what you all think. The firefighter who was helping us at the training op told me about a call he had gone on, supposedly to help rescue a kid from an absolutely massive tree. He said they didn't give him details, just said they needed him to come out and help because they lacked the proper equipment. He had been called out specifically because this thing was so huge that the SRR officers didn't feel safe trying to climb it. He had been a tree trimmer before joining the VFD, so it was easy enough for him to grab his old equipment and come out and help. He was let out about 2 miles, and the team stopped at one of the biggest trees in the area and pointed up. He laughed and asked the op captain how the kid had gone up there. Made some joke about the old cat in the tree thing, but the captain just shook his head and told him to get up there and get the kid down. He said he knew something was up, but he didn't push it. He said as he climbed this tree, he started wondering if they were playing a prank on him. There's no way this kid could have been able to climb this fucking thing. It was massive at the base, but halfway up, it started tapering, and I almost had to turn back a few times. I really didn't think it was gonna hold me. He said he kept going, and when he was just about at the top, he saw a flash of blue in the branches. I saw the kid's shirt sort of caught in a branch, and I called out to him, told him to come near me if he could, but he didn't say anything. I kept moving, calling the kid's name and telling him not to be scared. I was there to help him. By the time I got to him, I knew he wasn't gonna answer me. I found him, or what was left of him, cradled in the fork of a branch. The fact he was there was sheer luck. If he had fallen any other way, he would have come crashing down. It wouldn't have mattered though. This kid was dead long before he ended up in that tree. I don't know what put him there, or how or why, but it was fucking sick. The kid's intestines had popped out of his mouth and were hanging in the branches. It was like some thick Christmas tree, the way they were draped over everything. I got a better look and saw they even popped out of his pants. His eyes were gone too. I assume shoved out from whatever force had caused him to fucking pop like a stress ball. Ever seen a body that's been floating in the water for a long time? How their tongues kind of swell up, stick out? This was like that. I remember because there were flies crawling all over. I think I must have gone into shock. And I just pushed that kid down with a stick. Just kinda poked him until he fell. I don't know why I did it. I almost lost my job because of that. But man, the thought of hauling that kid over my shoulder the whole way, gathering his guts up, and coiling them around like rope so they wouldn't get snagged. I couldn't do it. I've seen a lot of dead kids, more than I ever admit to. I've seen a kid hide in a old bathtub during a house fire. They found him boiled alive, turned into literal soup. But this, I don't know what did this. But the thought of touching that kid's body made me feel like I was gonna lose my mind. I heard him hit the ground, and I figured everyone would freak out. But they knew he was dead when they sent me up there. They didn't say anything. They didn't shout or freak out. I got to the bottom, and I started to get up in the captain's face, asking him who he thought he was sending me up there when he knew damn well that the kid was dead. But he told me it was none of my concern and thanked me for getting the evidence down. I remember he said that. I remember it specifically because it's so weird to hear it phrased that way. The evidence. Like he wasn't even a person. Like he had never been a kid who got lost and had something fucking unspeakable happen to him. The captain had the crew lead me out of the woods, but he and 2 others stayed behind. And I thought that was weird. Why wouldn't they help me get the kid out? I tried asking, but the guys leading me out just told me they couldn't discuss it. They can't discuss an open case. I asked him what he thought had happened to the kid. And he got really pensive and thought about it for a moment. I would have said a crush injury based on his guts. It came out like that. But with those injuries, you see massive contusions under the skin. Obvious trauma. This wasn't like that. It was almost like the kid got caught into a big vacuum and had his guts sucked out. But even then, there was no trauma. None at all. It bothers me. It bothers the hell out of me. One of the vets at the training op reads Snowsleep, and he recognized my stories. He knows me pretty well, and we've swapped stories before. He asked if he could share something he noticed about the stairs, and some thoughts he had. I'm really glad you decided to share these. I think it's important people be aware of what's out there, especially since the Forest Service is doing such a good job at covering it all up. I asked him what he meant. What do you mean what I mean? A lack of any kind of media attention, or coverage of missing kids or bodies found miles where they got lost in the first place. David Paulites hit this right on the head. The FS is doing everything they can to keep people coming here, even if it isn't safe. I mean, to be fair, it's not like these things happen every day. But the numbers add up, and it's worth looking into, especially the stairs. I was surprised you didn't mention the flipped ones. I didn't know what he was talking about. I couldn't remember him ever talking about something like that. He seemed incredulous. Dude, I can't believe you've been on this long without seeing them. No one told you about them? I shrugged and asked him to elaborate. Oh, there's the normal stairs. The ones that pop up when we're out of ways. I know you know about them. But sometimes I've run across ones that are flipped upside down. Yes, it would be like if you had a dollhouse and the stairs were a separate piece. I take that, flip it upside down, so the top step is stuck in the dirt, and put it out in the woods. They're like that. I don't see them as often, but they're odd to say the least. Makes me think of footage taken after a tornado, when houses are all blown apart and random things are standing, like chimneys and garden walls. Those ones freak me out more than the normal ones, because I can't really write those off as easily. I don't really scare easily, like most of us who work out here. But that idea stuck with me, and it bothers me. I'm going to try and find more about them. He also mentioned how many people were bothered by the guy with no face. He got really excited and told me he had seen something similar. I was out on a training exercise a few years ago. I was camped out on my tent, and I heard someone walking around outside of my camp. We're told not to wander far, which you know. So I wondered if maybe it was a rookie who had gotten up to pee and couldn't find his way back. I remember that guy in our group a few years back who almost fell off the damn mountain. Well, I'm paranoid about that happening again. So I got up and see what's going on. I went to the edge of the camp and I called to whoever it was and told them that camp was this way. But they kept going back into the woods, so I went after them. I know it was stupid of me, but I was half asleep, and I just didn't want someone getting hurt. I followed this thing on a dead straight course for about a while, and then it stopped on the edge of a little river. I could see the outline of it because the water was reflecting the moon, and it looked just like an ordinary guy. He had a pack on, and it looked like he was facing me. I asked if he was okay, if he needed help, and he cocked his head like he didn't understand me. I always have my pocket knife with me, and it's got a little thumb light attached to it. So I turned that on and lit up his chest so I wouldn't blind him. He was breathing slowly and deeply, so I wondered he was sleepwalking or something. I went closer and asked him if he was okay. I moved the light up, and something didn't seem right. So I stopped. He kept breathing in this real slow, deep breaths. And I sort of figured out gradually that that's what was bothering me. It was like he was pretending to breathe, but not actually doing it. His breaths were too even and deep, and all his movements were exaggerated, like his shoulders going up and his chest moving. I told him to identify himself, and he made this muffled sound. I moved the light up, and I shit you not, this guy had no face, just smooth skin. I freaked out, and I fumbled my light. I saw him move towards me, but he didn't actually move. I don't know how to explain it, but 1 second he was at the edge of the river, and the next he was 5 feet away from me. He never looked away or blinked. It was like he moved so fast, my brain couldn't keep up. I tripped and fell. I could see this line open up on his throat. It stretched up to his ears, and he tilted his head back, and he smiled at me with his throat. There wasn't any blood, just this gaping dark hole. And I swear, he smiled at me with this gash in his throat. I got up and ran as fast as I could back to camp. I couldn't hear him following me, but it felt like he was right behind me. Even though when I looked back, I couldn't see him. I calmed down when I got to camp. The fire was still there. I guess that pack mentality of being with other people made me stop and breathe a little. I waited by the fire to see if he had followed me there, but I didn't hear anything for a few hours, so I went to bed. I know it sounds weird, but the whole thing was just so surreal. It was almost like I immediately wrote it off as my imagination. We were telling ghost stories one night before bed, just to scare each other and poke fun at whoever got creeped out most. Most of the time, it's the rookies, but one woman told a story and actually managed to get under my skin a little bit. And I know the same was true for others. She said it was true, but then again, every ghost story ever told around a campfire is true. Somehow though, I don't think she was making it up. It had that ring of truth that only really traumatizing events have. She said that when she was a kid, she and her friend used to go out in the woods behind her house a lot. She lived in northern Maine, where there's a lot of dense, unpopulated national forest. She said the woods up there aren't like they are here. They're so thick in places that the trees block out the sun almost completely. She and her friend grew up there, so they weren't scared of being out there alone. But they always did maintain a sense of caution in certain areas. She said it was never really talked about, but they always knew not to go out more than a mile beyond their homes. The adults never said why, but it was an unspoken rule that no one ventured out that far. She and her friend made up stories about bears as big as houses that lived there, and they used to scare each other by hiding and making growling noises while the others searched for them. She said one summer there was a series of awful storms that blew down a lot of trees and set one part of the forest a few miles behind her house on fire. The fire crews got it under control, but she said some of them came back not quite the same, like it was they had gone to war. You could tell who had really gotten scared, because they had the same look on their face. I think it's called shell shock. My friend and I said they were like Walking Dead people. They didn't smile or anything if you went up to them, and most of them left town as soon as everything was over. I asked my parents about it, but they said they didn't know what I was talking about. Once everyone was told the woods were safe again, my friend and I decided to hike out there where the fire had taken place. We didn't tell our parents where we were going, and it was pretty exciting to think that we were disobeying them like that. We hiked out about 2 miles or so, and we started seeing burned trees and stuff. I remember my friend got really upset because we found the skeleton of a deer curled up under a tree, and I practically had to drag her away. She wanted to bury it, but I didn't want her touching it because its antlers were weird. I can't remember why. I just remember thinking that there was something wrong with them, and I didn't want either of us going near it. The farther we went, the more burnt everything got. Eventually, there were no standing trees, and it was like being on another planet. Almost nothing green, just brown and black everywhere. We were standing there, looking at all of it, and we both heard someone shouting in the distance. I panicked because I thought it was my dad, and that he was going to tell me I was grounded. My friend broke off and went to hide behind a big rock, because she said she didn't want to get caught out here. Her parents had forbidden her to come out in the woods at all. She had lied and told them we were going to a movie. I followed her, and we kept listening. I could hear this voice getting closer, and I realized they were calling for help. I thought maybe it was some hiker who had gotten lost and needed some directions back to town. That used to happen all the time, so I was used to helping people out. I heard him following my voice, so I kept calling out until I saw him running in the distance. He got closer, and I could see that his face was all red. I told my friend to give me her pack, because she had a first aid kit. She made this noise like she was grossed out, and asked if I saw his face. I told her to shut up, and I jogged up to meet him. I stopped about halfway, and when he stopped in front of me, I could see that his nose and lips and part of his forehead were all gone. It was like they've been sliced off clean. He was bleeding badly, and I saw that the knees of his pants were red too. I took a step back. I was too scared to move much, and he grabbed my shoulders. It felt like I got a shock, and he jerked back. He started babbling, and I couldn't tell what he was saying, except that he kept asking how long he had been gone. Asked me where his unit was, but I just shook my head. He looked me over and saw my Walkman, and he screamed. He just kept babbling and touching his face, and I realized he wasn't wearing the right clothing. He had some kind of weird gray cloth jacket and almost formal pants on, and the jacket had those weird buttons and red borders on them. I kept shaking my head, and I told him I couldn't understand what he was saying. I went to the open first aid kit, but he just screamed again and said the only thing I could really understand. "Don't touch me. You'll make me go back there." After that, he ran off, and I could hear him screaming the whole way. When I couldn't hear him anymore, I turned around and my friend was crying. I just turned around and started walking back towards town. She asked me over and over what had happened and who that was, but I didn't say anything. When we got home, I told her I didn't want to play in the woods with her anymore. We're still friends, but we don't talk about that guy. Not ever. Okay guys, those are the stories I've gathered for now. Hopefully I'll catch you guys next week. I'll update as soon as I'm able to though. I appreciate the continued support.